Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Joey Knight Jr. here, back once again with another comic book review. And today's comic book review is YAIRA number 3. We have cover D right here, my reading copy. And then as always, we have cover A, the, keep in the package copy, the maybe one day gets signed copy, if I am to ever meet the Sasuke sisters once again. But, man. If y'all remember my review of YAIRA 2, y'all know the Sasuke's let YAIRA have it in YAIRA number 2, and it doesn't stop. We just go straight ahead forward, and she is just on the receiving end of her past coming back to haunt her one bit after another. And there's even more pieces of her past that we don't know about, just things that are like hinted about in passing through conversation. And I could only just imagine to think of how long it will take YAIRA to finally rid herself of her past, if she ever does it. But that's not the focus of today's comic review. So basically our story in YAIRA 3 begins where YAIRA number 2 ended. YAIRA is in the middle of her crash out that we saw at the end of YAIRA 2. She's seeing things. Her dreams will more appropriately call nightmares. If I was to give it a name, they're more of nightmares rather than dreams. But the visions she is seeing, while she's seeing these things, there's this reporter, and she's talking about how I told everyone YAIRA's gonna be the doom of us all. She's gonna kill us all. And while she's talking trash about YAIRA swoops in, grabs her, and it looks like YAIRA's about to kill her until Stefania of Alpha Corps intervenes. Stefania and YAIRA go back and forth for a little bit, and it looks like they're about to have a moment. It looks like they're about to have a moment of understanding, and maybe Stefania is maybe gonna move forward and possibly forgive YAIRA. Nope, because YAIRA's friend from the last comic that we were introduced to, an individual from YAIRA's home planet. Let me look at the name one more time, because some of these names I will say are tough on the pronunciation for me. But Yeshua is, I believe, how that's going to be pronounced. He comes in and smacks down Stefania real quick. And YAIRA wasn't happy about it, but he's like, hey, she said she was going to kill you, so I had to intervene. And then, of course, that brings in the rest of the Alpha Corps. It's not looking good for them. It's a 4-on-2 situation. So YAIRA and Yeshua, they go into the ocean. And Alpha Corps tries to follow them, but ultimately they get stopped by the Wraiths that are down there in Atlantis. YAIRA and Yeshua are able to escape while the Alpha Corps try to deal with them. And then we move forward where basically everyone from both sides are regrouping. YAIRA now as Dr. Sally Rodell, back with the Projexis group. They're just kind of trying to recover, think of their next plan to maybe recover what was down there in Atlantis. And then we see Brian Solari giving some tough love to Stefania about everything that happened. So the next thing we end up seeing is Projexis is going to send a rescue ship to retrieve the Queen of Atlantis, Mother of Atlantis. I believe the pronunciation on her name is Cleto. Lady Cleto is the pronunciation there. But in order for this to successfully happen, YAIRA goes into the dream world to distract the Wraiths so that way Lady Cleto can escape her imprisonment. So then it is a success. Lady Cleto is able to escape Atlantis, and in the process of YAIRA distracting the Wraiths, she's able to now take control of the Wraiths, and they do her bidding for her. And this all leads to the reporter we saw earlier. In fact, let me get that name on her, because she has a name. Carrie Jones. The reporter from earlier, Carrie Jones, who was talking all that smack about YAIRA. Yeah, well, turns out she is she's a very, very big creature, a very disgusting looking creature known as the Nightmare Queen. And yep, taking one look at her gives me plenty of nightmares. So now, Yaira and the Nightmare Queen are about to go at it, but then Yaira wakes up from this dream, and what does she wake up to? She wakes up to being restrained. How is she restrained? Well, apparently her friend, Yeshua, and the Nightmare Queen have had an alliance. And they get into details about how and why they, have their issues with Yaira. We see that Yaira has a past with the Nightmare Queen. She was in some sort of alliance with her. And then, when Yaira left her home planet, it caused all sorts of problems for everyone on the planet, including Yeshua. So they have their reasonings, but they disagree on how to deal with Yaira. You see, the Nightmare Queen wants to kill her. Yeshua wants to take Yaira back to his home planet so that way she could be dealt with justice on the home planet. So while they're arguing and fighting about, what they're going to do with Yaira, Yaira brings in the Wraiths. They're able to free her, and the odds are even up a little bit. The Wraiths are taking care of Yeshua, while Yaira takes care of the Nightmare Queen. Yaira then drops them both off to be imprisoned by Alpha Core, and then she goes on her merry way. She meets back up with Projexus once again as Dr. Sally Rodell, and it seems all is hopefully going to be normal now. But as everything when it comes to Yaira and the Yaira books we've read so far, things last normal for about 30 seconds. Because the big Projexus boss, he comes by to see all the discoveries that they've made until he notices that he doesn't recognize one of the people there. No. He does not recognize the person who is the so-called chief of operations down there in Spain. It was Javier something was his name. Javier Cruz. Yeah, so Javier Cruz, who we met in the last issue, who was not a fan of Dr. Sally Rodell at all. Turns out, he is not human at all. And he's not the chief of operations for Projexus in Spain either. Hate to break it to you. Not human, and he's not the chief of operations. No, he is a creature known as the Great Magus Painite. I hope I pronounced all that correctly. Probably not, but we're going to continue. But yes, and he has a history with Yaira as well. Just Yaira's... Yaira's been around for a long time, and she's made plenty of enemies to prove it. So this now leads into a big brawl, and it's not looking good for Yaira because back at the Alpha Core home base, back at the prison where the Nightmare Queen and Yeshua are being kept, something happens to the Wraiths where they're now starting to feel pain, whereas before they never felt pain, but now they're feeling pain. And because of this, it allows the two prisoners to escape and eventually meet back up with the Great Magus, and it's now a 3-on-1 situation for Yaira. It is not looking good. It's going to be hard enough for her to take on one of these people by herself, and now she's got to take on all 3 of them, but not to be afraid. The Alpha Core come in, they slide in, Yaira's taking care of Yeshua, and then the rest of the Alpha Core try and take care of these 2 scary creatures, the Great Magus and the Nightmare Queen. And well, unfortunately for Yeshua, once Yaira gets a hold of Neptune's trident, which was recovered from the rescue mission earlier in the comic, it all does not go well for Yeshua after that, because then the Great Magus turns them into one of his little soldier creatures, and they retreat back to wherever they came from. Well, except for the Nightmare Queen. Now, she's pretty focused on wanting to kill Yaira, but thanks to Yaira having possession of Neptune's trident, she freezes the Nightmare Queen in place. And then she is returned. The Neptune's trident and the Nightmare Queen are both returned to Alpha Core, and that is it for now. Because we see Yaira and Lady Cleto, they're just kind of talking everything over, like, Neptune's gonna come for you. you have me and the Trident here, he's gonna find us. And Yaira's basically just trying to, you know, calm her down, like, hey, I know, but we're gonna be ready for him. And then there's a surprise at the end, because their conversation was being watched. And who it was being watched by, well, I'm gonna leave that as a surprise, so that way you'll order Yaira number 3. But yes, this was a fantastic read, a fantastic continuation in the story of Yaira. Just not much time to rest at all, as you could probably imagine from what I was saying, because while I try not to give everything in these comic book reviews, there was no breaks, all right? There was no page left to, you know, just for filler. Like, every single page had something going on, whether it was action-packed fighting scenes or it was the storytelling key pieces that we needed to know as far as Yaira's past, her present, and potentially where her future's going. So all in all, a great read. You know, it just, as with all Rippaverse books, we either get one door closing but about 5 more potential story routes opening, or we get expansions on, we learn more about the doors that are already open but they don't close. And that last part is what this Yaira book was. We learn more about all the seeds that have been planted so far, and we don't get closure on any of them yet, but we do learn more, and I am looking forward to seeing where all of this goes. I can't wait for Yaira number 4 to come out. Just so much packed into this book. Yaira's relationship with Brian Solari, are we going to learn more about that? Is her relationship with Stefania gonna be reconciled at all? Are we gonna even get closer to that reconciliation? And then just everything else from her past. All these creatures coming for her. Just, Sasuke sisters, y'all did yourselves with this one. This one was a great read. I highly recommend it for anyone who may be sitting on the fence about it. If you're a fan of the Sasuke sisters from their movie work but haven't really delved into their comic work, I highly recommend it. Or if you're just a person who kind of likes the more like action-packed, kind of borderline on horror comics, I don't know if you could exactly call Yaira a horror comic, but some of the things that are in it, it's like, you know, Yaira kind of teeters more of that mythological, you know, itch, you know. In my opinion, it kind of teeters more in the mythology itch for those type of readers out there. But it is very action-packed, and a lot of the imagery sometimes, it'll make you go, you know, y'all know. But yes, with that being said, please leave a like on the video, comment, share the video, but most importantly of all, subscribe to Joey Knight Jr. And I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.